The Eternals are coming, and the nearly immortal team is set to face their ancient enemy, the Deviants. But there seems to be a bigger threat behind the Deviants, an existence-level threat of Oblivion. Loki was taking orders from Thanos. Caecilius was doing Dormammu's bidding. The Mandarin wasn't even the Mandarin, that was the creation of Adrian Killian. Justin Hammer thought he was in charge, but Whiplash had other plans. We know there is often a bigger bad behind the bad. Could a toy release have revealed a threat as old as the multiverse itself? As the Marvel Cinematic Universe enters its fourth phase, the franchise juggernaut is digging deep in the catalog once again with a team of superheroes that may not be the most recognizable group. After taking the Guardians of the Galaxy from the cheap seats to the front row, the MCU is hoping that lightning will strike twice with a team that is poised to be at the center of the next big threat. Created by the legendary Jack Kirby in 1976, the Eternals might not have the deep catalog of Thor or the Fantastic Four, but they are key to the development of the Marvel Universe. They are the product of experimentation on Earth by the oldest beings in the universe, the Celestials. They were left to sort out the other experiment that didn't go as well, the Deviants. As we know from comic book super science, there's no mistake so bad that you can't just try again and make the creation fix the problems of your first creation. Just ask Vision. From that land before time, the Eternals have had their fingers in the development of Earth's society as they defended against the Deviants and preparing for the Celestials to come back and judge their creations. While Ego isn't a Celestial in the comics, he is in the MCU, and the relevant part is that he's kind of a jerk. The big questions that the Eternals face when they enter the MCU is, if they've been around so long, where were they when all the recent events like Loki, Ultron, and Thanos happened, and why are they back all of a sudden? To get a hint at the answer, we go to a classic place for hints at things to come in these kinds of movies: toys. In this case, it's in the toy of the leader of the Deviants, Crow. Crow is a complicated figure for the Deviants. First, he's got some of that sweet eternal longevity. Instead of letting the rest of the Deviants know that, he just sort of replaces himself every generation. Like another celestial creation, the Skrulls, Crow has shape-shifting abilities to spook humans, often appearing as a devil. Of course, that's not what makes him complicated. That comes with his relationship with Thena of the Eternals. For 25,000 years, or millions depending on what timeline you're looking at, enemies Thena and Crow have had their own little Romeo and Juliet forbidden love. They even have a pair of secret twins. But that's another story. What's really important is what the toy says about Crow on the back. In a little bit of flavor text on the back is this phrase: a powerful deviant unlike any other the Eternals have faced over the millennia, Crow's appearance is the harbinger for a global threat. But if Crow is the long-lived leader of the Deviants, he would be the threat to the global threat. Not everything from the comics makes its way to the screen exactly as it was in the comics. Even the other shape-shifting threat to humanity has had a big change of heart once they made it into the MCU, with the Skrulls siding with shield and sword and just wanting to exit the centuries-long war with the Kree. Unless that's the perfect way to set up Secret Invasion. But how does all this mean that the global threat that Crow is harbinging is Oblivion, one of the four forces of the universe? Oh, we're gonna tell you. Oblivion is one of four beings who predate the multiverse, with Galactus rounding the group out as a kind of fifth Beatle. Except this superband is more about opposing forces than a functioning universe. Oblivion sits in opposition of eternity, while Death sits in opposition of infinity. After this group, the Celestials came into being and did their conquering and experimenting thing across the universe. At some point, though, someone got fed up with them and killed most of them. One Celestial's head is now a trading post called Nowhere that for a moment held the Reality Stone in the Collector's Collection. Peter Quill ended the only living Celestial we know about in the MCU when his dad turned out to be a big old jerk, which left half a Celestial in the universe in Quill himself. Sakaar was described as littered with the remains of fallen Celestials. Even more, Vormir was described by Nebula as the center of Celestial civilization. Since the Celestials can't even man the Soul Stone's Lover's Leap on their own, having recruited the Red Skull to do the deed, it stands to reason that there really aren't many Celestials hanging around to come back and pass judgment on their creation. But what could have wiped out the Celestials? What could be more powerful than the universe's oldest inhabitants? Well, a being who predates the multiverse itself, who would stand in complete opposition to the Celestials and their expansionist ways, experimenting with creating and manipulating life. Oblivion. Like other big and powerful beings, Oblivion is not above using proxies to get the deed done. In one memorable storyline, the Chaos Wars, he was able to infuse his power into King Chaos to clean house of the various pantheons across the MCU, including Greek gods as well as Asgardians. Naturally, this didn't sit well with the strongmen of either group, Hercules and Thor. But where the crossover gets interesting is who King Chaos's original victim was, Nightmare. While it might not be horrifying to hear bad guys who are beefing with other bad guys, such beefs rarely work out in our favor. But the important part is that the signs point to Nightmare being part of the big threat in another MCU movie coming out in Phase 4, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. The multiverse, in fact, is shaping up to be the next big thing for the MCU in the coming phases. In order to put Thanos' snap back, the Avengers had to trip through the multiverse, accidentally creating a few new offshoot realities while they were at it. Wanda Maximoff appears to be getting into the multiverse action herself, using her own reality warping abilities to bring back Vision after Thanos so rudely ripped out the Mind Stone, keeping him alive. Even Spider-Man is getting in on the multiverse fun, with the Electro from The Amazing Spider-Man making his way into the MCU's Spider-World. When the Collector was explaining what was in the sphere that had caused all the problems in Guardians of the Galaxy, he laid the origins of the Infinity Stones on the fledgling team of space defenders, including the story of the Celestials who would wield them. That's where we get the story of a group using the stones with a great cost. As powerful as the Celestials are, they don't have the cosmic level power of an aspect of the universe like Oblivion. So they might have to tap into a totem that does contain an aspect of the universe like the Infinity Stones. One of the important clues that this might be the case is the setting of the upcoming Eternals movie, right after Endgame. So far, the only thing we've seen to take place in Endgame was the sort of epilogue that was Spider-Man Far From Home, where Spider-Man and the rest of the world coped with the return of the Dusted Folks and some of the Avengers that didn't make it or retired. The thing is, it's not like the Infinity Stones come with an instruction booklet. Somehow, Thanos knew how to work it, closing the gauntlet to activate a stone and snapping to activate all of them. The Hulk was able to sort it out and bring back all the snapped folks. Perhaps he did that by just suggesting that whatever the stones have done should be undone. That could mean that it would undo the things the stones had done long before Thanos came up with his kill half of the universe idea. If the stones were used to contain the aspect of the universe that was trying to hasten the end of the universe and the Celestials in it, that act being undone would release Oblivion. You'd think that a nearly omnipotent being bent on the end of all things as a principle of his very existence, once free, would just, end all existence. Well, first, of course, is that he is offset by what he views as his opposite in his siblings. This brings us to Chaos Wars and the immediate death of Nightmare. In that story, the Chaos King, with power imbued by Oblivion, killed Nightmare to gain power over the Dream Dimension and put anyone who was not immortal to sleep. This left Hercules and the rest of the Pantheon gods in the Marvel Universe to fight the Chaos King and ultimately Oblivion. Now, it doesn't seem likely that Nightmare is going to get killed in the Eternals movie though, with all signs pointing to him being a thorn in Doctor Strange's side during the events of Multiverse of Madness. Instead, it could be part of Oblivion's complicated planning using a series of proxies. A deal made with Nightmare could sort out mortal interference, where remaining Avengers or sorcerers might have interfered with plans. Oblivion could have juiced Nightmare's powers, weakening the barriers between multiverses. Or that membrane was weakened by Wanda Maximoff. The Eternals movie sits in the middle of Phase 4, with not much in the way of reality bending before it. What little plot summary we have indicates that something after Endgame has awoken a horror that forces the Eternals to regroup and face them. If the snap undid the containment of Oblivion, he could look to Crow as his avatar of destruction, imbuing the Deviants with the power to actually challenge the Eternals and bring about the destruction of the planet that managed to undo the destruction of Thanos, who did half of Oblivion's work for him. Of course, we expect our heroes to save the day and defeat the Deviants, but then they'll either find themselves facing Oblivion or realizing that his influence is still out there in the multiverse and the group might stick around to help stop him. This would be consistent as well, as Eternals Sersi and Gilgamesh have joined the Avengers in the past. And they may join them in the MCU once they've been able to relay the level of threat posed by Oblivion or the kinds of powers that he's unleashed, including that fifth beetle we talked about, Galactus. And that is how Oblivion might be the final boss in the Eternals. So what do you think is the global threat that Crow is the harbinger of? Let us know in the comments, and while you're there, make sure to subscribe to CBR for the latest videos in your inbox. Thanks for watching.